Sauce.
Hey, you like Pez?
It looks like that. Here's Heaney from the boundary line. He's an expert at these. From the boundary line!
Hello and welcome to Behind the Boundary podcast. I'm your host, Pez. I'm here with Sauce. I can't believe we're here for a Brownlow show. And Sauce, neither could you.
No, and you were a little bit worried there, Pez. We were talking in the pre-show. Happy that we finally made it after 4 years of talking about a Brownlow show, Pez. Finally, we are having one remotely. We are having one, and it's super exciting because, Pez, we're in profit, the same place we've been in every single year when we've gone into the Brownlow round, but we can actually talk about it on our show.
Yeah, been in profit, and then usually put our bets out on our social media platforms at Behind the Bound on Twitter, Sauce, and usually have a pretty good night and a little bit of a clean-up. The Brownlow is, a really fun thing to bet on and to follow along with your mates and do all those sorts of things. So it'll be fun tonight, but it'll be over different forms and not in person.
Yeah, it's a little bit different, Pez. I mean, if we go back through all the times, and we were reflecting before about all the times that we've actually sat and watched the Brownlow together, there's been definitely some different venues, some different atmospheres, some different levels of people around us who have been drinking, and as well as that, Pez, the one thing that's consistent is the amount of money that we have been winning, and it's been a very successful thing, Pez. We always talk about it on our grand final show, how well we've won, but now it's a chance for the fans to jump on as well.
Yeah, do it, jump on, and the Brownlow is on tonight on a Sunday night, a little bit different in a bye week as well, leading up to the grand final. So here in lockdown in Victoria, not actually hearing a lot about the grand final at the moment. I guess media outlets are trying to get as much news and, speaking about things that wouldn't make the news otherwise if it wasn't a 2-week break. But we've got the Brownlow Medal to keep us entertained for this weekend, and then next weekend we've got the big dance.
We do, Pez, and there has been a lot to talk about in terms of the grand final, which, as you said, we'll get into it in our next show and properly get into depth about all the things that have come up over the 2 weeks. But one of the things I was really interested in is that Melbourne, when it comes to grand final day, they'll have only played one game in 28 days, which is pretty remarkable when you think about teams going into grand finals. Normally, you're talking about the team that's in form at the right time.
Yeah, and you don't know what it's going to want to do, who it's going to be an advantage to, but the Bulldogs have won it from outside the top 4 before in 2016, and they didn't have a week off, and this time they've got a week off after the prelim. So you don't know what's going to come out, and both teams very capable of winning it, and both supporters, as at the same time as being confident, absolutely shitting their pants because they don't want to lose that game.
No, they don't, Pez. And it's interesting hearing a lot of the media outlets talk about how different things suit different clubs. And realistically, I've heard cases for both ways and both who can win it and which teams are better and which teams are fatigued and which teams are hitting form at the right time. So it'll be good to get into that next week on our next show, Pez.
Yeah, exactly right. So just a little bit of structure for tonight. So we'll have to go in and review our bets from the prelim final weekend because we weren't able to do that, and then we'll get into a Bet Slip Brownlow edition after that.
Soft review, it's no official review. How does it end? We don't know. They've kind of lost, but they've won as well.
Interesting, Pez. It has been a little while since we've talked about it. Hopefully we can remember our wins and our losses from a very interesting prelim final series, as we have already spoken about in our previous show. If you missed that, make sure you go through all good podcast providers and go back and have a listen to that one.
Yeah, exactly right. So in terms of this Sauce, we've already spoken about the games and the review of those sorts of things. So we started with our first prelim final on the Friday night. And the prelim final was a big one. We already spoke about how disappointing it was to be absolute blowouts, but we had Melbourne take on Geelong. So how did you do in that game, Sauce?
Yeah, well, as you spoke about in the last one, Pez, I was really wary about actually betting on Geelong because I didn't believe that Geelong had a shot to win the game. So I just went with a straight disposals one. Some of the players that have been doing well for Geelong this year, which whilst they still struggled on the actual Friday night, they still got across the line with my disposals bet. So I had a 4-leg same game multi with Neds, Power Plus up in the max 50 staked on that one, Pez, and the way it sort of went out for me, as I said, 4 players: Sam Menegola, Zach Tui, Isaac Smith, and Cameron Guthrie, all to get 20 disposals. I was a little bit shaky on Cameron Guthrie to end up getting that last couple of touches to put him over the line, but I had the max 50 on it, as I said, at the power played odds at $2.31 and returned $115.50 for the first bet of that game, Pez. And on to your first bet of that game.
Yeah, I had Zach Tui as well to get 20 plus. He gave me a bit of a scare because Geelong just didn't seem to be touching the pill at one stage, and they weren't really going through Zach Tui out of defence either. I had Cameron Guthrie to get 25 plus, a little bit of a slow start he got there, and Christian Salem to get 20. Had 25 on it, odds of 221, so returned 55.25. So it wasn't horrible for that bet, but we do have 2 bets per game, it looks like here, Source. So my second bet, I've gone the over 130.5, under 180.5, which both got up, and then Geelong Cats plus 27.5 in the alternate handicap. No good at all. I wanted to find value, and Melbourne's plus line wasn't any value, and Geelong's wasn't any value because they got absolutely thrashed.
Yeah, you should have put on the minus 25.5 pairs, and it would have been some decent value in that one, or minus 50 or even minus 70. You would have had some great odds of that one, but mine was much the same, Pairs. I totally missed the mark on this game. I thought that Hawkins would have been an absolute force to be reckoned with down forward, and if he wasn't going to get blown out of the water, I thought Geelong, would still be able to be competitive for some of those long stints of the game, and probably. Hawkins had a shot in for the most goal scorers for that game. So I hit one of the 3 legs, Pairs. I had him for most goals, which he didn't succeed in. Anytime goal scorer, which he just scraped through. And then to score 2 or more, which I'm a little bit annoyed at because he had 2 opportunities, missed both of those. So I didn't even get a bonus bet for that one.
Quite easy opportunities looking back at it as well, which weren't able to be capitalised on. So I've got some Cats Melbourne legs in my multi as well, Source, which we'll get to at the end. But I also had a future bet that got finalised in this game, and it was the stage of elimination. Melbourne to be eliminated in the prelim final. Didn't happen because they're playing in the grand final, so $25 goes begging there. But the bet I spoke about just before, I got a bonus, obviously, for that one.
Yeah, I've got. I'll speak about my multi because I have some legs in my cheeky multi that I put across the both games. And my future bet, whilst Clayton Oliver is still alive in my most disposals, sitting at with 60 disposals across the 2 games, I highly doubt that he's going to even get close to McRae, who's sitting on 90-something after his 3 and still a game to play. But that is still alive and it still hasn't lost yet, but not looking good for that future bet, Pez.
Oh, he just needs what? To have 40 more disposals than McRae in the grand final?
And McRae not to have a touch? Yeah, sure. Yeah, right.
Maybe 80 disposals for Oliver, 40 for McRae. You could get a win.
You couldn't exactly right. Hopefully that works out, Pez. But I don't like the chances. I'm a realist, Pez, so that's probably going to be a little bit of a loss for me.
Yeah, no dramas. It hasn't been counted though because it is technically still alive and very unlikely, but just alive mathematically. The next game was another blowout. We had Port Adelaide taking on the Western Bulldogs and absolutely destroying them. Now, my first bet for this one, Source, I was quite happy. Under 184, Carl Aim on 20 plus, Bulldogs plus 42.5 and over 129.5, $2.32. Nice green tick to return 58 then. But where I went down in my cheeky, I had Bont to be anytime goal scorer, Connor Rosey to kick 2 plus goals. Port Adelaide nearly didn't turn up and kick 2 plus goals themselves, and Robbie Gray anytime goal scorer. So the cheeky lost, Source. But I also put out a live, and this is what hurt me this round. I put a live max 50. I put Port Adelaide head-to-head, Port Adelaide minus 15.5, and Port Adelaide halftime leader, just for some insurance with Sportsbet. And it didn't work out because none of those legs worked out because the Bulldogs absolutely on fire and dominating.
Yeah, well, I had 2 bets in this one, Pez, and both of them were revolved around Port Adelaide coming through. The first one was a $25 bet on them to lead at every quarter. They were lucky to lead at any part in the game. And the other bet was a 3-leg same-game multi, 25 laid on that one. Escape with a bonus bet. Charlie Dixon got his 2 goals. Carl Amon got his 20 disposals. And minus 15.5, the Port Adelaide line obviously didn't get up. I'll use that $25 bonus bet, Pez. I just have enough time to use it for the grand final, so that's when I'll use that one.
Just about to expire, isn't it? Something like that, yeah?
It is, and I'll make sure that it's laid for the grand final.
That reminds me, because my bonus bet, I don't know if it's still going or not, but I haven't looked into that. So hopefully that's still there for me in the grand final. The last one was the multi for the round. I had some legs everywhere. It didn't work out. Port Adelaide had to win by 1-39, which didn't happen. A lot of the other legs did get up, but also had Cats plus 39.5. So no good there, and $10 lost in that one.
Yeah, I was really lucky with this one, Pez. I had, as I said, legs across both games. In the Geelong game, I had Patrick Dangerfield to get 20, Tui to get 20, Selwood to get 15, and Menegola to get 20. And in the the Port Adelaide Western Bulldogs game, I had Tom Liberatore, Carl Amon, Ollie Wines, and I've actually forgotten about Max Gorn with his 15, and Isaac Smith. And as we saw on the last show, Pez, it was a little bit all over the place, but it was a messy way to get there, but we got there in the end. So that was my cheeky 25 down on that one, returned $144.81. So whilst a disappointing round for the Cats, Pez, a bit of a save from old Sauce there on that last Hail Mary.
How good is that? The whatever it was paying there, I put $5 plus. So I would imagine $5.79 as we see.
Yep.
That was a good one, and you were alive after the first game, so you would have been feeling really confident going into the Port Adelaide game with only 3 legs. You needed Libba and Amon to get 15 plus, which you'd think win or lose they'd do that. But Ollie Wines to get 30 was a good get when they lost by 70 something points as well. So beautiful stuff.
Yeah, thanks, Pez. And let's get on to where it puts me for the overall season. Going with 1 game to go, Pez. Definitely going to hit the profit unless our Brownlow show and our grand final absolutely goes up the creek.
I don't know how you're going to lose that amount of money if you follow the rules source in the 2 weeks, but you are sitting very comfortably. In the prelim final, I staked $170. I returned $113.25. I was about even going into the second game, but got it totally wrong. An ROI of minus 33.38%, which is really disappointing for me because total for the year, I've staked $4,980, returned $5,406.92. My ROI went below 10% again, Source, 8.57%, with not long left to see what's going on here.
Yeah, not long to try and save it and get it above that 10%. You're really, really relying on that grand final, as well as the Brownlow, obviously, tonight to put you in good stead. So for me, Pez, business as usual, just hitting the green ticks, as we know I do all year round, Pez. So the prelim finals was no different. I staked $150 for the round, returned at $260.31, an ROI of 73.54%. Overall for the year, staked $4,420, returned a massive $5,288.60. An ROI, Pez, just under 20%, 19.65%.
You're nearly at the fire emoji stage, Source, so let's see how that goes. But you got to love a round with an ROI of 73+% when you get both of the games wrong. Like that's how well you're traveling.
Yeah, that is a big thing, Pez, because when a couple of weeks ago when we missed the games and we misread the way the games were going to work out, our disposal market sort of saved us a little bit, and that's what you do sometimes when you put in those results into your multis. Sometimes if your team doesn't show up and you miss obviously the mark, you can still be saved by some of those players getting those little disposals here and there and a couple of snags, and again result in some profit.
Well, that's it. Now we've got the exciting times ahead. This is our little red carpet special before the Brownlow Source is going to be. I don't know if there's going to be a red carpet or an event or anything like that tonight, but we'll get into our bet slip and talk about our strategies for Brownlow betting.
The fact that the size of the bets was relatively small.
Our bets with an opportunity about 50 metres out.
I was with a mate and we were getting sort of ready to leave, and he said, I think I'm going to whack 10 on Maxi. Do you want some as well? And I said,
Oh, yes! Yes! Yes!
Here we are. The red carpet's rolled out, Source. We're ready to go down. I can see you suited up there over my Zoom. You're ready to get in there. The carpet will match the drapes, so they say, with your hairstyle as well. So that's good.
Yeah, that was a bit of a low dig there, Pez. And with the nickname of Sauce, state the obvious, Pez. Hopefully your betting insight and your Brownlow tactics are a lot better than your comedy, Pez, because already you're letting people down.
I let people down. I'm sure people have a few laughs, but it's another opportunity for you, Sauce, to be able to speak about your beloved Geelong as well. So a bit of flack you caused, you got last week, and wanting to speak about Geelong all the time, and a lot of fans were happy I finally called you out on it. So
Turn it up,
we'll see if you can keep that to a minimum tonight. But take us through, Sauce. Your experience with Brownlow betting and some tactics that you might like to go ahead with.
So Brownlow betting's a really tough one, Pez, because obviously you're worrying about your outsider's view of a game and then relying on the umpires who are there living the game to see the same sort of things that you see, and without the opportunities of stats. Now, I don't know whether we sort of have this debate every year, Pez, whether the umpires actually use stats or not. But what I like to do is I like to go across a range of different websites across the internet. Obviously, I like to use the Herald Sun papers. I like to use a whole lot of different voting platforms that the AFL make readily available. So there's the Coaches Awards, as the Herald Sun voting, as you've got the SEN voting, you've got some of those big footies, Sportsbet. All of them have their own Brownlow predictors. And if you're clever, Pez, you can go along throughout the year, and when you remember big games from big players, boom, you lock it in and go, right, I remember this game. There's no chance at all that they're not going to be getting the one or the three votes. So, and that's sort of my tactic for tonight, Pez. I've used a range of different sort of algorithms across a range of different data sources. And for most of them, I'm hoping that there's a little bit of an upset. So I'm hoping that there's not a little bit of an upset, but there's a little bit of players that have gone under the radar. And as we find with the Brownlow, generally it's the year behind that they catch up. And I think that's the case for tonight.
Yeah, very good. And you obviously put a lot of time into it and do your algorithms and things. And as you would know, my style for Brownlow betting, Source is a little bit different. So the way I look at it is when I see a game, I try and think of what the umpires are going to see and what they're going to think. So there's a few things that it's really hard to get votes as a key defender. It's really, really unlikely to win the Brownlow if you're a forward. So it's a midfielder's medal, and the players with high disposals usually get the votes. But the big thing in the last, say, 5 years, what umpires are looking at is those midfielders who not only rack up the 30 disposals on a regular occasion, but also hit the scoreboard. So I've looked very carefully at the stats. Now, you mentioned the umpires and what they do, and we've had this discussion, Source. We are 100% sure that the umpires look at the stats before they put their 3-2-1 votes in, because sometimes you think a player gets 35 disposals, has minimal impact, and you don't have them in your top three, and then they come out in Brownlow night and get 3 votes. Tom Mitchell is a prime example of that. So we know that the umpires use the stats and have a look at that a lot. They're in the middle, they're there, they see those players getting the clearances and racking up the ball, and if they've got no idea, they just go, yep, all right, that person will get 3 votes. So I've used that, but tonight it's all about hitting the scoreboard for mine. And if you hit the scoreboard big, you can get some really good votes. And I'll speak about the kind of markets that I've gone into very, very heavily when we do get into our bet slip, Source.
Looking forward to it, Pez. So the way it's going to work is we're going to go through our bets and sort of the same sort of rules that we normally have, our 10 bets or our $200 to spend, and where you might be able to listen and agree with and maybe even implement some of your own strategies to what we have implemented today, and maybe you can find some winnings for yourself as a viewer and a loyal podcast fan.
That's it, mate. So the bet slip, we got $200 to play with, Source. Not that we always stick to the rules, so you can see how you go. You can play with all your profits if you want. Yeah, it will be completely up to you. But 10 max, because only 10 can fit on the little graphic, and the media manager isn't going to go any deeper than that.
No, I think that the media manager needs to do what needs to be done, Pez, and get that done ASAP. But let's start things off, Pez. I've got a bet in round one. I think this was a pretty obvious one, and this is one of those ones that I took notes in my phone, Pez. I went back through my phone, had a look, and I'm like, round one, watching the game, and it was an absolute cracker of a game. It was a Saturday Arvo. It was one of those games, I remember sitting on the couch. Your Saints, Pez, were playing, and it was a really, really hard, tough-fought win, and I've gone for the 3-vote market. So I've gone for 2 poll, 3 votes in round 1 in that game. I've gone with the favourite earlier in the week, $1.75 in Tim Embry. With he had an amazing game in terms of 21 disposals. He had 7 marks inside 50 and across the ground in a very wet and weathered football. And he also put on, as you said, hit the scoreboard with 3 goals. The only worry I'm going to have in that one is maybe Billings, because he did have 30 and a goal. But I think that it was a coming out party for him. The big forward, he's got a lot of tats there. I think that he gets the 3 votes in that one.
Yeah, I'd agree with you there in round 1. And I was very excited for St Kilda to win by 8 points after that round. But Membry got up the ground, took the marks, as you said. So I like the way you spoke through that. In round 1, he should get the 3 vote source, which means you get the green tick and go from there. And I might continue the trend source, and I might start mine in round number 4. All right, so round number 4, and it's really hard sometimes to think back to these games, but you've got to go back, you've got to look at the stats, you've got to see, who's the winner and who's likely to get these votes. So I've gone round 4, Fremantle versus Hawthorn, $1.60 favourite, Nat Fyfe to poll the 3 votes. Now, if we look at the odds and things here, now Tom Mitchell, he had 38 disposals and he had a goal, all right, but they did lose by 15 points. And this is a game, we actually went to the footy in Victoria this day, Source, and we went and watched Fremantle versus Hawthorn at the pub later that day. And I just remember Nat Fyfe being an absolute jet. He kicked 0-6. So you could say he kicked a goal because he got 6 behinds there. But he had 30 disposals, had 3 marks. He also had 5 tackles. And he's a known poller. He's a known Brownlow winner. So umpires, early season, notice Nat Fyfe. I think he gets the 3 over Tom Mitchell there for the winning side. So I'll take that at $1.60.
Pez, I love that bit because not only was happening in that game, I remember watching it with you, I was obviously on our phones. Every time he got near the ball in that 4th quarter, the crowd was going nuts too. So, the crowd is every time, they're sort of electric every time he gets the ball, which definitely helps his case trying to poll some votes and get the umpire's attention. So, love that bet and love the way that you've spoken through it, Pez. And that's what's really pivotal when you're talking about these games. Sometimes you can't just go on the odds favourites. I mean, a lot of the time when people are doing Brownlows, they go, I'm just going to go through and hit the favourites on each one. Sometimes you've got to take a little bit of a risk. Sometimes you've got to go safe. And sometimes you've got to use the smarts of, remember what was happening during the game. But as well as that, Pez, make sure that you look at the stats as well, because that's exactly what the umpires are doing.
Yeah, and precursor, I've got 6 more of these bets coming up that I absolutely love, and I'm hoping to hit 100% with them, Source, because I've gone for hitting the scoreboard. And even though Nat Fyfe didn't kick a goal, we think he'll get the 3 votes. We think Membry will get the 3 votes in that other game, and I've got more coming up.
Yeah, I like that one, Pez. Have you got any more for round 4 before I get into round 5?
No, I've got a round 5 one as well.
Oh, me too. So I've got a round 5 one, actually, Pez, that when I was putting this on, I didn't realise that I'd put it on, and I was going through my bets, and I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I forgot about that bet that was sitting there in the Neds account. So I've gone over to Neds with this one for, as I said, round 5. I've gone with my Cats, Pez, so I'll keep it short and sweet because I know that you don't like us talking about the Cats, but it's a lot easier when you're obviously looking at some of these votes because you watch the game with a closer eye, and you sort of, you notice things a little bit different when you're watching as a spectator for your club. I've gone with Brandon Parfitt to get the 3 votes in this one. This was a massive coming out party for Brandon Parfitt. He had, I think it was 38 touches, Pez, and my app's just gone down there, but going off memory,
34.
34. He was all over the ground. He didn't hit the scoreboard in terms of an actual goal. He had 0-1, but he was all over the ground. The only other person who actually they were sitting favourite in the category at $1.80 or $1.90 or something is Sam Menegola. But as we saw last year, Pez, wing players just don't seem to get the attention. They don't seem to hit the scoreboard, and they don't seem to actually make big notes themselves. So while Sam Menegola did get 2 goals, he wasn't a big impact player. Parfitt was all over the ground, getting in a lot of that contested pill, and I really like this one as a little bit of an outsider. $10 at $3.50, I don't mind that one at all.
Yeah, there you go. And a close eye for Geelong. So Parfitt there, 34 disposals, 7 tackles as well there. So that should get him noticed a bit. So he'll get the 3 or the 2 there, and hopefully the 3 for your case, Source. I have a round 5 bet as well, Source. I've headed over to the Western Bulldogs versus the Gold Coast Suns. And this was a big 62-point win by the Bulldogs. And sometimes it's dangerous in a big win to go with what there was. You had Corbett down one end kick 3. You had Bontempelli kick 3 as well. So if you got, Bontempelli's kick 3? What's going on there? He also racked up 33 disposals, which was the third most on the ground. So Dunkley had 38 and 2 goals. McRae had 35, didn't hit the scoreboard, but the Bont, 33, 19 of those were kicks with 6 tackles as well. I think he's a lock to get the 3 votes there at $1.50, so I've put my money there.
Yeah, and I think that's a smart one, Pez, because when you're looking in the betting market, he is favourites at $1.50, but the next closest one's Josh Dunkley at $2.50. And whilst he had 38 and 2 goals, Bontempelli, we know that he's been spoken about, and every time they're up and about, that's all they're talking about is Bontempelli. He should get the 3 votes in that one, Pez, so I love that bet for you, Pez.
Yeah, it's kind of with prior knowledge of the player. You know, a player has to come out and play really well one year, and then they're recognised because they're spoken about in the media. Josh Dunkley was spoken about in the media in the off-season, but not because of his footy talents. It was because of the trade rumours and the Essendon things like that. If Bulldogs have a big win, the first player you look at is you go, oh, Bontempelli, he had a big impact. And if he's kicking 3 and not going to get the 3 votes, I'll be very surprised.
And for memory in that game, Pez, he came out early and just dominated. So McRae got a lot of those touches a little bit later on in the game. Not that it really matters, but when the game's sort of dead, you're looking for those players that, Dunkley get those, got those possessions a lot later in the game. He ended up with 38, but he seems to do that week in, week out, and sometimes that can be a detriment to those sort of players.
Well, that's the thing, and I can keep going, so I've got one in round 7.
Round 7. Hit me with it, Pez, because I'm not up until like round 18.
If you're not up until round 18, Sauce, I might have to go through all of mine, but we'll get sick of hearing my voice. But I will do this one, round 7. It was a Friday night clash. It was Richmond versus the Western Bulldogs. It was a big one here. Now, in this game, you always look at the disposal winners. So Caleb Daniel had 34. He's not a player that's going to poll a lot of 3-vote games. He's not going to have the big influence and get that. You had Basher Hooley with 31 and a goal. You had McRae with 30, and they were the only players to get over 30 disposals. For the goal kickers, you had Tom Lynch, he kicked 3 goals, 5, and you got Shea Bolton, kicked 3 goals, 1. Norton also kicked 3 goals. Richmond won by 22 points. So the 3 vote, more than likely, is going to the Richmond Tigers. You got Lynch and Bolton both kicking 3 goals. You got Hooley with 31 disposals. So you'd say it's out of those 3, you got Jaden Short, who played off the half-back line. I don't think those sort of players get 3-vote games. They usually get the 1 vote, possibly the 2 if they had a really, really big influence. But in this game, I just remember watching it. Shea Bolton had a big impact in the middle of the ground, and he also had a massive impact forward kicking those 3 goals. He had 22 disposals, 12 kicks, 10 handballs, 7 marks around the ground with 2 tackles, and those 3 goals that he kicked, absolutely pivotal. So I think he gets votes over Lynch and all the Bulldogs. So I've gone with him at $1.50 with $20 on that one as well.
And I think pivotal is understated, Pez. He's one of those players that I've actually got on my bet slip in my own personal one, Pez, but haven't put it on the pod because I know you were going to speak about it. And realistically, the 2 of the 3 goals that he kicked were the last two of the last 3 goals. So he kicked 3 goals for the game. He kicked 2 in that fourth quarter. 2 of them were almost the sealers. And, it was the Western Bulldogs' first loss as well for the season. So it was a huge coming out party for Richmond. It was a massive win. Shea Bolton was all around the ground. And normally in these sort of ones that you're looking there and you're like, okay, well, where's Dustin Martin? Didn't play. So, you're looking for, well, there's no one else who's going to be their go-to. You maybe Lynch might make with 3-5, but forwards don't generally get a look in, but I love Bolton at that one at $1.50, Pez.
Yeah, fingers crossed that comes through, and that takes me through 3 of my bets already. I'm already having withdrawals because I'm going to go through my 10 very, very quickly, and then we have to sit patiently and wait for the Brownlow.
Well, actually, Pez, before we get into that one, when's your next round that you're into?
The next round, mate, round 8.
Round 8, okay. Well, let me know when you're at round 10 because I've got a bet in that one.
All right, so I'll go through 2 more of mine, Sauce, and then the floor will be yours. I'm heading to round 8, and I'm going to Gold Coast versus St Kilda. Now, this is a player, Jack Steele. He's the 4th favourite in the Brownlow, Sauce when St Kilda didn't have the greatest year. We played against the Gold Coast Suns. You've got 8 goals, 15, 63 to 7 goals, 12, 54. So the Saints get the win by 9 points. Who was instrumental in getting them that win? It was Jack Steele. He had the 4th most disposals on the ground with 28, but he also hit the scoreboard with 2 goals, 1, and 2 goals in a 9-point win absolutely pivotal to able to get that win. 8 tackles. We know he's one of the best tacklers in the business, and no one else can really compete. You had Miller with 33, Jones with 31, Crouch with 30 and a goal. Jack Steele's a known vote getter from last season. He finished quite high in the Brownlow, so they're going to be looking for him again first up. Ben King down the other end had 3 goals. Billings had 2 as well. But nothing like the impact of Jack Steele in the middle of that ground. He's a midfielder. He's the one that they're going to look to first. Him at $1.40. I love that, and I'm going from there. So you'll notice my bets range from $1.40 right up to $1.90, just with the players that are actually getting a lot of the pill, playing some form in the midfield and going forward and hitting that scoreboard source.
Yeah, exactly right. It's a good little formula, Pez, and you don't always have to go for those big odds in order to have a return. If you hit all of those bets, Pez, you're going to be profitable, and that's what you're wanting for. You're looking for guaranteed profit, especially when you're trailing by so much to me, Pez.
Yeah, well, I'll continue to just try and get the profit, but this next bet source, it's one of my highest odds bets for the day, and it's in round 9. We've got West Coast versus Adelaide. Now, this is in the Sunday time slot, late in Victorian time. West Coast versus Adelaide. It wasn't the greatest game that you'd ever watch, but someone's got to get the votes. It was West Coast leading very narrowly in the first quarter, and then they led by around 5 goals at halftime source, and then they kept that and won by 30 points in the end as well. So you have a look here. You've got Laird with 36, Keys with 32, Kelly with 31, Gaff with 30, Witherden with 30. So all those players with 30 plus, that's where you look to first. Then you look at the goals. McAdam for Adelaide had 3 goals. Kennedy had 3 goals. Oscar Allen had 3 goals. Jack Darling, he had 5 goals too. Now, he is equal favourite in this game with Tim Kelly, who had 31 touches. 18 of those were handballs. But Darling, he kicked 5 goals in the second quarter source when the game was on the line to get them that lead. And when I think that the umpires, go into the sheds afterwards, they look back at the game, the second half, I don't think it counts as much as what happened in that second quarter when it was even going into it, and then West Coast come out on fire because the umpires go into halftime and they go, whoa, you see that? Jack Darling just kicked 5. And that's going to be in their head because the score stayed pretty much the same for the rest of the game. And I think big forwards don't always get the 3 votes, but when they kick a big bag, 5 goals is considered a big bag these days, Source. When they do kick that big bag, they get those 3 votes. So Jack Darling, 3 votes for mine at $1.87.
No, I like that one, Pez. I think that's it's a smart bet, and an equal favourite at $1.87. You're basically going for hoping that they notice the goal kickers in terms of that versus the midfielder, because Tim Kelly, for memory, Pez, he started off quite sluggish as well earlier on in the year. So that 31 might have been a more businessman-like 31 than an impressive 31. Gaff generally is not going to be getting those high votes, and same with Witherden. So I like where your money's going there, Pez. Finally, I get to actually have a chat, Pez, so it's good. And what I've gone for the leader after round 10, and this one here, this is, for me, it's a pretty safe bet, this one. I'm looking at Clayton Oliver to be the leader after round 10, and it's not great odds. He is the favourite there, but he's a favourite for a reason, Pez. So I've got him at $1.85, and I've put 15 on that because he has some pretty massive sort of games. So round 10 is where he'll, where he gets a definite 3 votes. I would say against Adelaide, he was absolutely fantastic. Kicks 3 goals and has 38 disposals. You look at round 9, he has 2. I think he's probably going to get 2 there. Round 8, that's 3. On its own, Pez, that's what's that? 8 votes. He comes in strong. I think he should finish 2 clear of Bontempelli at round 10. So that will give me a nice little midway point, Pez. And a bit of a spoiler alert, I've got Oliver sort of hanging on from there and taking on his first Brownlow.
Yeah, it is strange to say a definite 3 vote game in a losing side, but Oliver, he nearly dragged them over the line with 3 goals and 38 disposals. So he's definitely at least getting the 2, but I'll put my money on him getting the 3 as well in that one source.
Yeah, look, you're right, but if you remember for that game, it wasn't a dominant game by Adelaide. It was a topsy-turvy game, and realistically, goal for goal, and Adelaide in that one didn't have any dominant sort of players, but I love the value for that one, Pez, and it keeps me interested at round 10, so which is really good, because obviously, unlike you, I'm not betting on every single round.
Well, speaking of every single round, what's the next round? Round
The next
11.
round
I've got
11. Here
to
we
bet
go.
in that one as well. Here we go. We'll go Sydney versus Carlton first. And Sydney, comfortable 22-point win against the Blues. We go to the disposals. Sam Walsh was the only one to get over 30. He had 33 disposals. He didn't hit the scoreboard. And then you had Cripps, who had 27 disposals. He kicked 3. So Cripps has had a very good game, but they did lose by 22 points. So where am I looking at Sydney? You had Lloyd, Cunningham, and Mills, the top 3 disposal getters. All of them didn't hit the scoreboard. So I'm looking at the scoreboard hitter, Isaac Heaney. He kicked 3 goals, 1, but he also had 22 disposals sourced. Out of the 22 disposals, 20 of those were kicks. So he was instrumental in the way that they played. Instrumental is the word of the day, if you haven't noticed that behind the band, because that's all that's coming out at the moment. He also had 14 marks and 3 tackles coming out of that half-forward line. Some time in the midfield as well, hitting the scoreboard, which I like. $1.40 there. I think that he gets that over everyone else. Cripps is probably going to sneak in with a 1, possibly a 2-vote game as well, but they're not going to give him the 3 because Sydney had a 22-point win. So confident on that one as well.
Yeah, and especially if you look at the betting pairs, like the top 3 odds is Isaac Heaney, $1.40, Patrick Cribbs at $2.75. As you said, in a loss, he's probably not going to get the 3 votes in that one. And then at $21 is your next person with Josh Kennedy at 21. So pretty sort of a safe little sound bet there, and especially when you marry it up with your instrumental deconstruction of the game.
Yeah, well, I've got another one in round 11 as well. So let's see the most instrumental player in this one. I'm heading to Collingwood versus Geelong, Source. So I'm speaking about Geelong, not you. So just keep quiet for a second. We had Geelong winning by 10 points here. Now, this was the one where Geelong absolutely dominated early on, and Collingwood made the comeback, and Geelong were able to hold on. I remember that day as well. I had Geelong on the line bet, and I thought it was home, and then Collingwood came back in that fourth quarter, which was very horrible low-scoring game. And what happens historically in horrible low-scoring games? The player with the most goals gets up there in the votes. So we had Maine, Parfitt, 30-plus disposals. Over 25-plus, you had a number of players. Jordan De Goey had 26 and 2 goals. But then down the other end, you had Tom Hawkins with 3 goals. Now, Tom Hawkins is usually a 10 to 15 disposal type getter. In this game, he had 21 disposals. He went up the ground. He took 7 marks, 5 hitouts in the ruck. He was very good in the ruck there. 3 goals and 2 points with his 2 tackles. I can't go past him at $1.70. So you get, pretty good odds there. $1.70, you've got to really love that. And I'll take that with another $20 on that. And I'm hoping to go 7 from 7.
Yeah, especially when you, as you mentioned, Pez, generally forwards in a low-scoring game. When he's kicked, three of the goals to combine for their 60, which is a third of their score. What makes it good is that he actually is getting up the ground, as you're saying, and he was instrumental in that game. And it was a game that Geelong basically dominated for 3 quarters of the whole game, basically, because there was only the last 10 when they put the cues in the rack that Collingwood sort of came back. No one's stealing the votes off him, Pez. That is absolute money for VBs, that one. I love that bet at $1.70.
All right, we'll take it, and I'll give the floor to you, Sauce.
You give the floor to me? I'm actually going to go down to... well, I haven't got my notes here, Pez. I thought you had another 20 bets before we actually got to my one in round 19, Pez. And that's what I talk about. I talk about the Friday night clash, and I'm talking about Port Adelaide taking on the Magpies. And in this one, Pez, I've gone a little bit left side in this one because the best player on the ground clearly was your man, Drew. But no one really knows who Drew. He comes off the wing. He was starting to make a little bit of a name for himself, Pez. He had 32 disposals. You go through, and the next person on the board was Travis Boak, and I've got him, Pez, at absolute ripper odds. He had 30 disposals. He had 15 kicks, 15 handballs. He was instrumental around the ground. Had a couple of goal assists, and he probably could have snagged a couple of actual goals as well. But I got him at the rate of $3.75, Pez, earlier in the week, and I've whacked 10 on that one. I just think that last year he was one of those players that it's sort of, a lot more people sort of thought he would have got a lot more votes. Again, as we said, that product of the next year, they end up getting some votes. In this one, when the best player in the ground is sort of a first-year player who comes off the wing, and 23 of those disposals, Pez, were handballs. I think Boak gets the chocolates in this one.
All right, I'll take your thoughts there. We had Charlie Dixon kicking 4, Todd Marshall kicking 3, but Charlie Dixon only had 11 disposals in that game as well. So with a comfortable 28-point win, you're hoping it goes to that midfielder in Boak there, Sauce. Do you have any more other round 3 poll getters?
No, I don't, Pez. The floor is yours for the next 10 rounds.
No, I don't have any more because I couldn't fit them on my slip. I'm going to have plenty more in the personal source, but these were the 7 that I really liked that hit the scoreboard and did things like that. So we will be putting these out at Behind the Bound, and I jumped on these today, so odds shouldn't have changed too much if you do want to jump on any of them. My next category source is the to poll a vote category. And historically, for us, this has been one of our favourite ones because you see a player have an absolute ripper game, and you're like, that's a 1 vote game. He's getting a 1 vote game. I'm super excited for this, and we've had value at say $3.20, $3.80. Over $4 in recent years because people just have short memories and they don't remember the games that these sort of players have. Now, Sportsbet's kind of ruined it a little bit this year, Source. So the to poll a vote, they've got a lot of $4, $7, $14, kind of like the anytime goal scorer, how they ruined that this season as well. But I've found one that I do like. It's Jack Sinclair from St Kilda. He's only at $1.45, but I just had to put a bet on this market because it's one of my favourite markets. If this player gets 1 vote in the Brownlow, you win the bet. And if he doesn't get a vote, you don't. So if you go all the way to round 23 and he still doesn't have a vote, you can start celebrating if he gets a vote in round 23 because it's up and about. I remember one year, Source, we won in round 18 when we were like, yep, this player gets a vote. And they called him getting a vote, and there's big celebrations and beers and a lot of people around that night, which you can't have these days with COVID-19. But Jack Sinclair, $1.45 to poll a vote. I think he had a really solid season. He played really well from half-back, and a few of those games, he actually took a lot of marks across half-back and was really good going forward in terms of setting up scores. So I'm hoping he gets 1, and if he only gets 1, that'll be a tick. If not, that's okay because I had to put a bet on this market.
Yeah, you're right, Pez. And I remember there was another year that we did it, Pez, and we were having a spit at one of our mates' houses, and we had him getting a vote. I think it was round 18 or 19, and he got one in like round 4, and we were absolutely stoked. And we were up and about. And then we had the opposite the other year where we had to wait all the way to round 18 to get the win. But Pez, the common thread in both of those scenarios was some chocolates for us, Pez, and some nice little green ticks to go alongside.
Yeah, the green tick, I'll take that. So, I've got a cheeky left, Source, and I've got a little box trifecta. So, floor's yours for a while.
All right, the floor's mine for a while. While we're still talking about a range of different players getting votes, I've gone with the Brownlow Group B. So we're similar to what they're doing with the goal kickers and most disposals, where they pick out a range of different players and they put who they think is going to poll the most votes. I think absolute value in this one. You can currently get it at $3.50, but I got it earlier in the week. Dane Zorko, a Brownlow Group B. I've put $25 on this one, Pairs, for him to win the group. In the group, you've got Callum Mills, Max Gawn, Brayshaw, Dustin Martin, Jordan DeGoey, Jake Stringer, and Isaac Heaney. The only real one that I'm worried about is Isaac Heaney, but I have Dane Zorko across 3 or 4 of my things, actually beating him by 5 pairs. So that is a massive thing for me, and I think it's an absolute money for VBs. I'd be all over that one if I was a punter.
Well, and you are, and it sounds like you're already all over it because you've got it there. Interesting market, the Group B. So you think he's going to come out on top and win by 5 votes, you said? I
think that's so. If my metrics are correct, Pairs, I've got him beating Callum Mills by 5. He beats Max Gawn by about 10 or 15. So, it's realistically a 2-horse race, Callum Mills and Zorko. And I think when Brisbane was sort of doing quite well, they had a lot of injuries, and Zorko's going to get a fair few votes for there. And a big, bustly sort of player like Zorko, I think he's going to make me feel really, really smart at the end of this, Pairs, because that's a big call.
What might do well with that as well is I was surprised that he won Brisbane's Best and Fairest because I thought Lions was going to win that, and he came storming home at the end as well to take over and win that award. So the umpires hopefully saw the same thing as the Brisbane Lions Best and Fairest voters.
Fingers crossed, Pairs. What I do like about the Brownlow is that you actually got a range of different markets that you haven't seen before. Like there's some absolute gems in there, and the bring your own bets. Sometimes those you generally stay away from those ones, but there's a lot of good little bets you can find. As you said, they've got the top 3 finish, you got the top 5 finish, leader after round 10. Most votes without certain players. Most votes at clubs. You've got most over under on clubs, players head to heads, and the one I've gone for this one, Pairs, Pez, I've gone for a top 3 finish, and this one is a little bit of a left field one, but I've got Jack Steele, your man, Pez. Whilst you guys just missed out on finals, in the games that you do win, he's fantastic. In a couple of those close losses, he's probably going to be getting those 2 or 1 votes, Pez. I've got him as top 3 finish, and I've put $25 on that, Pez, at $2.05, and I think that is it's a bit of a roughie for it, but I think if it can get up and he can, he's one of those players that polled well last year. We know he polls well. I think he can do well, and I've actually in my metrics, Pez, I've got him finishing second. So I think he's a really big shot to finish top 3.
Yeah, very surprising on my end for the amount of games St Kilda won. But yeah, he hit the scoreboard a lot this year as a midfielder and had multiple goals in multiple games. So hopefully umpires see that, and for your sake, give him some votes there. At 4th favourite, you want him to get top 3 and get over Wines, Oliver, or Bontempelli there.
Yeah, and the last one I've got, Pez, before we get into our cheeky, is I've gone $25 each way, so a stake total of $50 on Clayton Oliver to win the Brownlow, just each way. So if he does win it, Pez, I get the max payout of $128.12. And if I don't, I'm not actually sure because they don't show what the odds are, but if he finishes top 3, I get $25 at a place sort of vote there, which if it's a $3.50, I'm probably looking at about $1.50, $1.60 sort of mark, but they don't say it. But don't worry about it, Pez, because I've got him winning his first Brownlow. He had an absolute stellar of a season, and whilst Bontempelli will be leading going into towards the end, probably the last 5 rounds, he does have an absolute shocker in that last month, and Oliver and Steele and Ollie Wines will just overstep Bontempelli, and he won't even finish in the top 3, Bontempelli.
Well, I hope he does, because I think he's going to cement all his votes in early games. And what I really like about the Brownlow, well, I don't love it, but what I've noticed about the Brownlow is the players that are noticeable and known vote getters tend to get the votes in the early part of the season for the teams when they have wins, even if they weren't the best player on the ground. So that's what I'm hoping for here. I've gone to the box trifecta, and I'm totally opposite of you in terms of Jack Steele. He was 4th favourite. You got Petrarca as 5th favourite. I don't think Jack Steele can get into that top 3. Just because of the way St Kilda played this season. So I've got Oliver, Bontempelli, and Wines, any order, to be the top 3. So they are the 3 favourites for the Brownlow. But that's paying $3.50, so I'll put 20 on that as well.
Ah, very good, Pez. Well, I've gone a box trifecta, Pez, similar sort of marker, but for me, Pez, I've gone with a
cheeky.
And as you said, he's the top 4 favourite, Pez, and I've gone with the box trifecta of Clayton Oliver, Jack Steele, and Ollie Wines, Pez. One thing that we do know generally in these things, there is a lot of surprises at the top when these things happen. The amount of times that teams with poor records end up getting in there. I remember a couple of years ago with Cripps and Walsh, and many times with Gary Ablett when they was down the bottom. These players sort of come out of nowhere. You are correct that those big players early on, they get the votes in games that they probably shouldn't. But I think the Western Bulldogs is going to be a lot of players taking votes off Bontempelli, and in the games that he doesn't register goals, I think there's some big standout performances from the other players. So I've whacked 25 on that one, Pez. That'll be a huge return for me at 750 odds.
Yeah, well, there's your cheeky. Is that all you got for your bet slip? That's done and ready to go. Press that cheeky button for mine.
Cheeky.
No, this is very cheeky because you can't pick this. There's no data that'll back you up on this and things like that. But I'm thinking the umpires are overrating one player and underrating the other. So I've gone these 2 players to poll exactly the same number of votes. So it doesn't matter what votes they get, as long as they are exactly the same. So Zach Merritt, who's the one that I'm saying the umpires, overvalue and will give votes to, and Jack McRae, the other one where they'll undervalue him. He gets 38 disposals plus, maybe not the 3 votes because he's not the most instrumental player on the ground, because you got the Bont up forward kicking 3 goals in the same game and things like that. So I think because of that balance of the umpire source, and that's my only reason, Zach Merritt, Jack McRae, $8.50. I'll put a cheeky 10 on that for them to poll the exact same number of votes.
I like that, Pez. I like it for its creativity, and I can see that obviously after all your in-depth analysis, you were looking for just something to tick the box of cheeky, and yeah, you've gone very lazy with that one, Pez.
No, have a bit of fun at the same time and get into those Essendon supporters about, Merritt not being a very good player.
Yes, it'll be some interesting discussions from this one, Pez. I love the Brownlow, as you mentioned. It's one of those things that which you and I generally watch together. We have a couple of beers. I'll definitely be having a few beers tonight, Pez. I'll probably be messaging you flat stick like we normally do, or on the phone or on the Zoom. But make sure that you enjoy the Brownlow, because it is a fantastic night that you get to reflect on the season that was, and Pez, and it was a really great season for everyone involved.
Oh, yeah, and whoever wins it, well deserving, and the best of luck to them. They'll have their little photo shoot. I wonder if they'll do a Nat Fyfe shirtless pic the morning after, or what it will be like. Interesting, because Clayton Oliver, I haven't heard much of him in terms of interviews. So if he wins the Brownlow, be very interested to watch, his speech and his interview, and he'll have a lot of media scrutiny heading into that grand final, being in the grand final. Bontempelli is the other one. He speaks very well in front of the media, being the Bulldogs captain, and pressure on him, because if he wins the Brownlow, he's captain of his side. If he won the Brownlow as the captain and Norm Smith medal and grand final winner, that would be a big year, bigger than what Dustin Martin got the year before. And then Ollie Wines as well. So Ollie Wines, not too much in the media. You see him a lot in 5AA in South Australia, but you usually got Boak and Charlie Dixon fronting the media when you see it in Victoria. So interested to see the speeches there.
Yeah, it will be very interesting, Pez. We know that there are definitely some moments that always pop up into AFL folklore from Brownlow night, and I'm really looking forward to getting to this one, Pez. Only a couple of hours away. We need to get this show out so the punters can hear our advice, Pez, and collect some winnings.
All right, so I'll have to be on our Twitter at Behind the Bound, refreshing and having a look at all the certain rounds and what bets we've got on Pez's Bet Slip and Source's Bet Slip. So that's there for you at Behind the Bound. Jump on, follow along with anything that you like, or make up your own, depending on if you liked what you heard or you didn't like what you heard. So I'm Pez. Best of luck in your punting. Peace out.
I'm still Source. We'll catch up next time. And as always, if you're having a punt, bet responsibly.